Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings. But this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018. And no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. Today's re-release is with Alyssa Milano, who, for anyone who grew up in the 80s, perhaps remembers her as Sam on Who's the Boss. But also, she has her own career, and a huge career at that now, as a producer, and is even working on something that maybe I brought her way. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Alyssa Milano. Alyssa Milano is the author of Sorry, Not Sorry. She has spent almost her entire life in the public eye and is an actor, producer, designer, philanthropist, and humanitarian. Alyssa currently stars in Insatiable for the streaming giant Netflix as Cora Lee, the social climbing wife of a disgraced lawyer / beauty pageant coach. Prior to that, she was seen in their hit series Wet Hot American Summer 10 years later, opposite Amy Poehler, Elizabeth Banks, Michael Ian Black, and Judah Friedlander. She recently completed the independent feature Little Italy, a modern-day Romeo and Juliet story where love blossoms between members of two passionate Italian families, locked in a bitter rivalry over who has the best pizzeria. Alyssa also served as the host and a judge on Lifetime's Project Runway All-Stars alongside judges Isaac Mizrahi and Georgina Chapman. She entered the world of graphic novels with Hacktivist, a fast-paced cyber thriller that follows the young founders of an innovative social media company who moonlight as a secret black hat hacker team. The CW is developing a drama series adaptation of Hacktivist. In addition to her deal with the CW, she has a first-look production deal with CBS and TV studios. And I actually already had Alyssa Milano on my podcast, I think it was last summer. So this is her second time, and I learned all sorts of new stuff, and we had a really fun time. So enjoy. Welcome, Alyssa. Thank you so much for coming back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss Sorry, Not Sorry.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure. How did you decide on the outfit for this cover? This is the least important question ever. And we're going to get into the nitty gritty of really important topics, but just wondering.
The picture was actually from a photo session that I did I think it was for the Washington Post. And so we used it because it's kind of perfect for that. But yeah, it was just my leather jacket that I had. We did the photo session at a hotel in New York while I was doing press for other things. And I was like, I'm going to just put on my black jeans and my leather jacket. And there's the picture. So
there it is.
It has kind of turned into my activism picture.
Yes, activism uniform or something. I love it. It's really cool. All right. Well, you have so many ideas in this book about just basically everything going on in the world right now. You have distilled down and have an opinion and a strong point of view about, which is amazing. And you write it really clearly too, which is awesome.
A lot of help from the editors because
Really?
Well, yeah, because some of the issues that I talk about can be incredibly not only complex and have a lot of moving parts, but also have a lot of feeling behind it. And so, it was trying to balance that line of giving a lot of myself because, I wanted to give the readers a glimpse into who I am, but also to be historically correct and to push the envelope in a way that I feel like, needed to be pushed.
I found it really, there was this groundswell of support or encouragement by your use of repetition, right? Particularly like in the first one where you're just saying like, what's messed up? I'm not sure if I can curse. It's my own show. I don't even know if I can curse on it or not, but when you're just like
about being unapologetically effed up.
Yeah. But you said like, this is an example and here's why. And this is an example and here's why. And even later when you're talking about men and what was the phrase you used all the time? The sickness in men, right? The sickness in men is this. This is the sickness. This is because of this tweet. This is because of that. And like it's like an inculcation, right? Of like trying to reverse indoctrination, if you will. So tell me about that, and how did you harness all of these feelings, and like tell me about the writing and the passion and all of that.
I think the cool thing for me was this, I've written books before, but this format was a lot more aligned with how I normally feel good about my writing, because I write op-eds, right? That's what I've been doing for the past, 5 years, and I've been published in everywhere from the New York Times to the Washington Post, to CNN opinion pieces. And I think for me to be able to take a topic and really immerse myself in, those 5 or 6 pages rather than an entire book allowed me to give issues time to breathe, but also to move away from them quickly. So I think there's just I don't know if you could tell while you were reading it, but I'm recording the audio book right now. And there is like this gradual, slow, rise to almost hysteria, and I think In the Sickness of Men is a good, sort of middle place where you go, oh, okay, this is going to start getting, deep, but also just things that I'm so passionate about, like my family, and to be able to write a book about like activism plus my personal life, I really felt like the essay format really lent itself to both of those things. So yeah, it was really fun, and and people talk a lot about like it was so cathartic, to go re-examine my life, and I wouldn't say it was cathartic because a lot of it's tough, to go back and take inventory of why you are who you are, but I will say that we talk a lot about right now trying to find, especially in my family, but also like with my therapist, and we talk a lot about trying to find the blessings in this time in history, even though it feels so heavy and it feels so completely out of control, our control. And this book and being able to write it without, having to leave the house to go pick up the kids from school or whatever it was, to be able to write it in a concentrated way when there was not much else going on was great. And so that's one of the things I come back to when I think about this really chaotic time, in history, this politically, this chaotic time just in public health, in global health, and even in international relations. Yeah, so to be able to do that it was really a blessing. And I'm very, like, when I think about the things that I have gratitude toward, it's that I had this time to be able to really focus on this book and make it something that I wanted, to share. It was a process, though. I mean, it was definitely a process. It was writing and then rewriting and then, going back through and then getting notes from my editor and rewriting. And, it's interesting because some of the essays came really easy. And then others, I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what was important to say. But it was, and I think a lot of this might sound crazy, but I think a lot of this is because in the past 5 years or whatever, I've worked with so many organizations and advocacy groups about the issues that were going on in our country that I had to remind myself how I felt about them. Because so often when you work with these groups, they're sending you talking points to build your tweet around, or your, the way in which you speak to these things. And so it was an interesting exercise to sort of throw all of that away and really just figure out, like, what do I want to say right now about this? So yeah, I'm really proud of it. And as I'm doing the audiobook right now, it's spurring even more ideas like, I thought the other day, I was like, I should take some of these chapters and do them on stage.
Oh,
like as a performance, like a one-woman show, because they are, it really, the book is really like a timestamp. When you look back, when you read this book 20 years from now, you're really going to get a glimpse of exactly where we are or were as a country.
I was just talking to somebody right before I was going to do this, and they were asking me two questions. And first she was like, oh, well, she must have had a ghostwriter, right? And I was like, oh, no, I don't think so. I think this was all her, which, by the way, I might have made up. But I was like, not that I know you that well after our one other podcast interview, but I was like, this is so much someone's voice. Like, you can't make this up.
Yeah, no, I did not have a ghostwriter, but I did have a lot of help from my editor and Dutton Books, and they were incredible. But I think you could tell it's my voice.
Yeah, yes.
And
I could tell you.
It's consistent, right? And
yes, that's true.
And
too.
I think what you were talking about before about just repetition, and maybe why, as I'm reading this for, recording it, I think the inspiration where I was like, this would be a great monologue to do on stage is because of that repetition, because there is something rhythmic about, and it's almost like, some of them read as if I was at a protest.
Yes.
Right? Like that's
true, yeah.
That would be a stump speech, or, some speaking somewhere about something that I believe in. But I write very, very much rhythmically. So much so, here's an interesting thing. I wrote a pilot script, and my dad's a pretty famous music editor for films. And I did this mood board on Instagram, and I sent him the mood board, and I said, just take a look at this. If there's any type of music that you think would be a great companion for these visuals, just send it my way. And he sent me this amazing Icelandic group. And as I pressed play, I just started reading the script. And the inflection in the script is inflection in the music that he sent me.
Whoa.
And I think, I'm a very big believer that everything, like synchronicity is a real thing, and everything has a rhythm, right? Like, when you're in your car and there's a song playing and maybe it's raining, and then all of a sudden the windshield wipers start, wiping in the same rhythm that the song is in. Like, I think everything has a rhythm. So for me, I think in writing the book, in those moments where I am using a phrase over and over, it's a callback to my days, protesting and being on a stage, but also it's just I write rhythmically. So for me, that is the rhythm.
I love it. Take it to the stage.
Yeah, it would be cool, right? I don't know.
It would be totally cool.
I'd have to find another writer to really sort of,
adapt it.
Yeah, make it for the stage. But I think it could be really interesting.
I'm sure there are people who would be dying to do that job.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I think it could be really interesting, and an interesting way to express what I've written in a different format that still allows for me to be me. I say to, I've written, this is like my sixth book that I've written. And I always say to the publishers, I'm like, can we please try to find a different way to sell this book other than going and doing signings at a bookstore or, readings at whatever. It's just, first of all, I'm dyslexic. Second of all, I have social disorder. So like to be in, a small bookstore and sign hundreds of autographs, it just makes me nervous. But also like the dyslexia and having to read an excerpt at Barnes and Noble in front of hundreds of people makes me so nervous. So I'm always like, how can we do something interesting with this book.
I actually just announced that I started my own publishing company, and it's
congratulations.
to counteract like some of these very things that you're saying, and like how can we do things differently, and there must be better ways, and all these not complaints, but just things that could be optimized by so many people like you and that I've had on the podcast. So I'm trying to do it. So
good
I don't know.
You.
Wish me luck.
I wish you all the luck. You deserve it.
Oh,
but it's also like, it's such a weird, when you think about how writers are mostly incredibly introverted and very complex in their thinking and their ability to communicate. And the fact that like we've decided that going into a bookstore and signing autographs would be conducive and show them in the best light, it doesn't really, you're right, it doesn't really sync up.
I feel like especially post-COVID, I mean, I also have a lot of anxiety, and now it's like found new ways to manifest itself, which is lovely. And I discover them every day. So I'm like really having a hard time being in crowds after being so much time in my room, in my house and all of that.
By the way, I didn't love crowds to begin with.
No, I never liked them.
Now I'm like...
Now I had like a panic attack the other day. I was like crying. I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't, like, I have to get through the street, and like, I have to drop my kids at school, and like, it's not, even like, I don't know if it's the same for you. I just feel like even being in like party type situations, like I'm so drained. Like I have to like, recuperate for so long afterwards now.
Emmy weekend is coming up. So I have, the list of parties that I've been invited to. And, my husband's, he owns his own managerial company now. And so he kind of has to go to those parties. And I don't know, I just feel like I paid my dues. Like I've done it now for 40 years. Like maybe I get to just stay home and be cozy, But the whole kids in school thing,
oh my gosh,
it is so nerve-wracking. And I talk to my therapist quite a bit, and I really want to destigmatize the whole mental health aspect, because I think it's really important right now that we not only take care of ourselves, but have someone to talk to that doesn't feel burdened with our our quirks and the things that make us special. But he was like, his name is James, and he was like, you're doing well. And I said, yeah, and I don't really understand why. And he said, oh, I know. He's like, because everyone else is operating at the same frequency that you usually operate. Like, so you can go, like, see what I mean? Everything's fucked up. See it? Told you. I told you this for years. And now we're all there together, in this place of panic and hysteria. So yeah, but I think because there's like my anxiety disorder has so often been about feeling something physically and then piping in why I feel this way because, of course I feel this way because I haven't, had a second to myself or whatever, or I feel this way because it's going to rain tomorrow. It's going to rain. And that is giving me my anxiety and my chest, whatever it is, we just plug in mental reasons for the physical manifestations. And I just can't, like, there's enough to be like substantially upset about now. So I'm not plugging in any like false emotions to.
No lack of material.
Yeah, like just go into the supermarket. I went to the supermarket the other day and I'm in the produce section and someone was wearing a mask and they pulled down the mask to sneeze and cough all over the tomatoes. And I was like, oh God, just slowly back away. What do you do in that moment where I just wanted to go, just keep your mask on if you're going to sneeze on the tomatoes. Like, just keep the mask on.
Yeah.
So
at least sneeze on like the packaged goods
or processed
but not the
no, not the tomatoes. Like, and I'm Italian. That's sacrilegious. Like, you don't sneeze on tomatoes for the love of God.
Sacred ground of the
sacred ground of ancestors forgotten.
Oh my gosh!
But it is really something. And
well, no, I was so happy to see in your book that you talk about anxiety and how you felt about it, and even your experience with COVID and just all that stuff that so many people are feeling now. It's just, in the midst of it's almost like you were like a minister or something, right? Getting up and giving like a sermon or a speech or something about it. And yet then we get these like glimpses into like what's behind that. And that was very almost comforting in a way in the midst of your justified rage at so many things that's going on. So anyway, I thought it was such a nice balance that you struck.
Yeah, that was the challenge of writing this book, because, I didn't want it to be like me getting up on my soapbox and preaching how people should feel. I always give sermons, but it's more about like, this is where I am right now. And I don't know, come with me if you're also on that journey. And if not, you can be trolly and troll me on the internet. Like, it's just, it is what it is,
Yeah. Well, this was amazing. So aside from turning this into a one-woman show, like what do you, and knowing the constraints of like what makes all of us want to like have panic attacks or whatever. Yeah. What are the plans for like how you can promote this book? Have you come up with anything?
I think do a lot of virtual things. Yeah. I mean, I just signed, I'm going to say 2,500 books.
Oh my Lord.
It took me 6 days.
Oh my gosh. I don't even understand, honestly, autographs. I don't understand it.
Yeah. I don't.
Like, why is it so great? I mean, I'd so much rather like take a picture, like, I don't know, have a conversation, or I don't know, anyway, whatever.
I think that probably there's probably some interesting history about
the
autographs. Yeah.
I'm going to look that up. That's a good point.
Yeah. I bet there is some kind of, because I remember being little, and having an autograph book.
Oh, my kids at Disney World, they like run around like
that's what I was just going to say.
People. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was just going to say is I would take, my little autograph book, and when we'd go to Disneyland, I would get Mickey's autograph, and, Snow White. I remember she kissed one of the pages with her red lipstick, and I do that sometimes. Like if I'm wearing lipstick, I'm just like, Snow White. I kiss the page where I sign it, because that has got to be more interesting, I think.
There must be some parody where like people are like licking autograph pages.
Yeah.
They're like taking it to like a full-on extreme.
Using it as toilet paper, like some ridiculous thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I am going to try very hard to push myself to do some in-person events too, because I really believe in the book.
Yeah. Well, I think in smaller settings, it can be super powerful to connect with authors and readers, and it's amazing.
And outside. Like if we could figure out a way to do it outside a bookstore.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I have to warn you before you come, New York is really crowded right now. All of a sudden, they're like I don't know, last year was like empty here, and now it's hard. It's just really crowded.
I think that's good. That's good.
It's probably good for the city.
My family who still lives in Brooklyn, they have been talking about how sad New York seems, and how the buzz that was, so prominent and such a huge part of New York's identity didn't feel that way anymore. So maybe what you're feeling is that maybe that's coming back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think we need to celebrate that.
You're right. I will reframe. I'm going to take James's advice through you.
Yes. Okay.
I
get it.
I can send you, a little piece of the bill or something like that.
Okay. Excellent.
Anyway. Okay. Do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Write every day. Just write. It doesn't matter about like what you write about. It doesn't matter if you're working on a specific project. Just write. And then the other thing I would say is don't be afraid to put a lot of yourself in the book, even if it's not a memoir or a book of essays about how you feel, even if it's a total, fiction story. What will set it apart from the other authors and the other books is that there's part of you in there. Yeah, and just to be patient. It takes a lot of patience to be a writer. It really does, because the process is not immediate, right?
It's kind of like being a parent.
Yeah, right. Like you put in the work, and then you hope for the best.
You hope it'll turn out okay, but sometimes you have to throw it out. I don't know what that equivalent would be, but
you can't throw out your children.
Not advocating that, but maybe you try a parenting technique that someone else said was good and it's a total disaster, and then you move on. But you have to try it to get to where you feel better. So,
yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
I love that your books behind you are color coordinated.
Yes. Well, you're welcome to come when you're in New York. You can come hang out.
That is so cool. I need to do that with my books.
I did it, yeah. After COVID, I took every book in this whole room and put it on the floor and redid it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. So
I love it.
Awesome. All right. Well, and if you ever want to talk more about the publishing stuff and
yes, I would love to hear about
or
that.
Whatever, we launched on Monday and
good for you
exciting right now, and we have a great team of people and acquiring books and stuff. So I want to help people, get their books in the world in the best ways for them too. So
I love that you're doing that. It's so awesome.
Thank you.
And needed, to continue to do something one way doesn't mean it's the right way. It's just it's one way of doing it. So the fact that you're able to, let's set up a Zoom where you can fill me in.
Perfect. Love to.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And
thanks for your support. I really appreciate
talking about the book, of course. Now I have to go find myself a jacket.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.